in Overton, the Quilt Rambler, and today I want to show you how to cover composition notebooks. Aren't these beautiful? Now you may ask yourself, why in the world would you want to cover a composition notebook? And my answer is, why not? Seriously, paper never forgets, and I know we live in a digital age and everybody has things on their smartphone. I do too, but there's times you're writing things down on a piece of paper and then the problem comes, you forget where that piece of paper is. But if you put everything in a notebook and you had it all in here, your to-do list and that type of stuff, then you've got it all together in one place. Now, you may notice that I have included a zipper here so that we can also keep up with those pins. So what I'm going to do today is give you an overview of how to cover your own notebook. I'll give you a list of supplies. We'll do some sewing together. And I'm also going to have a PDF available for you with all of the written instructions because, again, paper never forgets. You may not realize this, but composition notebooks, they've been around for eons. Oh my goodness, they had it when I was children. But they're common, they're ordinary. They come in different sizes, and well, not different sizes, they come in different, what I call flavors. You have the wide lines, you have the college rule, but did you know that they also have graph paper? This is one of my favorites. I love having graph paper because then I can doodle out my designs. And speaking of doodling, if you're a long arm quilter or even a free motion quilter and you want to doodle designs, they have a primary page. This gives you room right here for your big pictures, and then you can practice your sashing. So there's so many reasons to have a composition notebook cover, and I can guarantee after making one with me today, you won't make just one. So let's get started with what we need. Obviously, we need composition notebooks, and you can find those, of course, at the grocery store, the convenience stores, the office supply stores. Look around for them. They're not very expensive. You're going to need a half a yard of foundation fabric. I prefer a muslin or a light color fabric. It can be a fabric that you just want to get rid of because it's not going to show. Foundation means just that, it's foundation. But if you have it a dark color, it might show later through your lining. You're also going to need a scrap of batting, about 20 inches by 30 inches, and this is going to be part of our quilt sandwich. And then you're going to need 1/3 of a yard of lining. Now your lining needs to be pretty, okay? Pretty colors that will match your fabrics. And what you're going to do, and we'll talk about this again in more detail, is you're going to actually make a little quilt. Now what I did is I love Island Batiks pre-cuts. These are little 5-inch squares, and I was able to cut them into quarters and then sew them together to make a checkerboard, okay? Your little quilt needs to be a 15 by 27, and then we're going to cut it down to size. And that's where you're going to line it with your foundation fabric and your batting. And you're either going to take it to your domestic. Now, if you're not a big quilter and this is new to you, don't panic, because you can actually go through and just what they call stitch in the ditch, where you're just going up and down the lines, and that's going to quilt it for you. If you do that, have some fun threads, okay, just to make it pretty. And so you can either do that, or you can quilt free motion and practice on your domestic, or because I'm a long arm quilter, I like putting mine on the long arm. So that's what we need for that part of it. But in addition, what we're going to be cutting out of that lining fabric, we need a zipper. Now I prefer Bianni zippers. I buy them by the yard. They come with different colors of zipper pulls. I like her zippers best, mainly because they have the wide tape here, and because they do come with a bigger zipper pull, it's easier for me to grip. For example, when I am opening up my book to get my pins out, it's easier for me to get a hold of. So Bianni's is a really good brand. You can use just regular zippers, especially if you're just, that's what you have. Use what you have. But try these because I think you're going to find that they're so much easier to work with, and there's so many wonderful fun colors. Your zipper needs to be 11 inches. Now if your zipper is longer, that's actually better because it's nice to cut the zipper down to size. You don't want it any smaller, but when you're cutting zippers, it's good to have a Teflon coated scissor because then you're not nicking your good scissors. And if you don't have that, use just your paper cutting scissors, but don't use your regular, obviously your good shears, because you can cut right through the coils on the zipper without any problems. You're also, from your lining fabric, you're going to need to cut a 4-inch strip, 4 inch by 11, and that's going to be for this back section here. when you put the quilted cover together, you have an area here to tuck your book in, as well as you're going to have this little fold over in the front. So you need to cut a 4-inch strip, 4" by 11, to be able to line this. And then here's what we've cut off of our little quilt sandwich. You're also going to need, in addition to your zipper, you need to cut a 2.5-inch strip. You cut 2 of these. We're going to fold them in half, and in a few minutes we're going to go to the machine. I'll show you how we're going to put that together on the zipper. You also need little 2 2.5-inch squares, because that's going to be the tabs for our zipper. And pretty much that's it. Oh yes, you need a button. 1.5 inches is a good size because we're going to have a closure. You're also going to need a ribbon, and this is where it kind of comes in fun. I get a yard of ribbon with my Island Boutique pre-cuts, or you can make a ribbon yourself, or you can purchase a colored ribbon. That's fine. And I almost forgot the most important thing. You can't have a vinyl pocket if you don't have vinyl. Okay? You can get vinyl at your local stores, and it's just a simple vinyl. I don't care what thickness it is, as long as it's not too thin that your pins are going to poke through. And you're going to cut it at a 5 by 11. And keep the paper on it, because that keeps it from rolling up and things like that. So I think that's really all of our supplies. You know, your normal stuff like your sewing machine, your thread, your stilettos, your wonder clips. When you're working with quilted things, it's really nice to have these little clips. They come in 2 different sizes. The small ones work great for most things, but there's a point when we're doing these zippers that to have these big jumbo clips really, really comes in handy. So let's go to the sewing machine and let me show you how to put this together, okay? Now that we're at the sewing machine, I wanted to talk a little bit more about how you put your quilt sandwich together. I neglected to say that the little Island Boutique 5-inch squares actually makes 2 little quilts. And again, you are going to make your little quilt, and you're going to quilt it however you want to. Quilt is desired, they say. And then you're going to trim it down to 11 inches by about 27 inches. And at that point, you're also going to cut off 4 inches from the end. Okay, this is our little flap that goes in the back. When we get this trimmed and cut down, we've got to decide which of these ends wants to be our top. Because if you remember looking at our sample, it will flip over. This is how we close it. We have a closure here with our zipper. So if it matters to you which of the fabric looks better on top, sometimes we have prettier fabrics or we fussy cut it, then audition that with your notebook. Okay, by putting it on here, leave a little bit of room to fold under, okay? And then you're going to say, oh, this is the side that I want to show up. Well, if that is the side that I want to have up, then I need to take a little something round and round the corners. Now this is just a little koozie. Things are bigger and better in Texas, right? So I'm just going to take my marker and round the corner. Do it here on this side. Just round that corner. Then I will take my scissors. This is really technical here. You know, we're just getting a rounded corner to differentiate between which is going to be the front flap of our little notebook. Okay. If you want to be exact, you can fold it in half and make sure you've got it really good. Now at this point, you want to stop and put your button on. Maybe about 1 inch or so in, go ahead and sew it down, because I've neglected to do that a couple of times, and it's much easier to do it at this point. So we'll take this little quilt out of the way because I have one that I have already sewed the button on. This is the one we're going to be working on. So the first thing we're going to do is take that 4-inch strip that we've cut for our inside, our back flap. We're going to take our lining fabric, right sides together. We're going to sew down each side, and we're going to leave it as a tube. Now to save time, I have already done that for you. Here's the one, and we're leaving this open at both ends, okay? There's no reason to sew those ends. They're going to get caught up in our seam allowance. But I have gone through and I have actually top stitched. I've pressed it and top stitched to make it nice and pretty. So we can set that aside for the next step. The next step is actually going to be working on our zipper. Now zippers, I have fallen in love with zippers. They're a lot of fun, and don't be afraid of zippers. It's not like when we were in high school in home ec and we had to put a zipper in a dress that kind of, oh, we have to do zippers. Zippers are fun, fast, and really great. We're going to take that little 2.5-inch square that I had you cut earlier. You have 2 of those. You're going to fold down a little side about 1/4 inch and press it on both sides so that you have your seam allowance here. What we're doing is we're encasing this zipper so that we don't have these edges. We also don't want them to be caught in our seam allowance when we actually make the cover. It just makes things less bulky. So we're going to put them together like this, just kind of butt it in, fold it in half, and then you're simply going to sew across there. Now to save time, again, we're doing both sides. I have already done one side, and so we'll put this one aside and we will work on this zipper. You can see here that I have done my little tab on each end, and then I trimmed it to be equal to my zipper because it wasn't equal, and that way it was just easier to put on. Now we're going to put on our side facings, and I've already done one here, and I'm going to show you how to do the other one. That 2.5 inch strip that we cut earlier from our lining, that's a 2.5 by 11. You're going to take it to your pressing machine and put it in half. Okay? Then we're going to actually nestle our zipper inside the facing. We're going to use that folded line as our guide. I'm butting it up right up against there. This is where the little clips come in handy, okay? Because I want to make sure it's straight. The fun thing about these zippers is they're not just functional, but they're decorative too. It adds a pop of color, and it just, just another little fashion statement. Put my zipper pulled down a little ways. We're going to pin that. Excuse me, we're going to clip that. Now what I like to do is remind myself in the middle is when I need to move that zipper pull out of the way, because if I try to go around it, I'm going to end up with a little bump. So we're ready to take this to the machine and get our stiletto here. Now, you don't have to use a zipper foot. That's what I like about these two, because that tape on the edge of the zipper is so wide, okay? You have a lot of surface area to sew on. And I'm taking my foot and I'm butting the foot right up against that coil, and then I'm sewing right along a line there. So I don't want to go all the way up because I want part of my zipper to show, because again, that's a fashion statement, and that's why we buy pretty zippers. So I've got it butted up. Take my first clip off. I'm trying to find where my coil is. I can use my stiletto right here and you can feel it, you can see it. Okay, needle down, press her foot down, and then away she goes. Okay, and I'm keeping that right along that coil because that's what's making my straight line. Okay. When I get to my middle clip, I'm going to remove the clip, I'm going to open this up, raise my presser foot, and I'm going to unzip it and move that zipper pull out of the way. Recheck to make sure everything's straight. Put the foot back down, and then here we go again. Move the last clip. Make sure we're catching everything in. Now I know this looks really strange, but trust me, you're going to love this method once you get used to it. So now I'm actually opening up my fabric. This is where this pressing tool comes in handy. This is a stiletto and a pressing tool. Keeps me from having to get up to the iron too often, especially when there's areas of finger pressing. So I'm pressing that open, turn it over. I'm going to press this side open, start from the top, and just kind of comb it. You're just combing down, giving it a good press, because you want, pressing really matters anytime you're sewing. It just makes a difference to have nice finished edges. Okay, so what I have done on this side, I went ahead and pressed my raw edges in, okay? And I need to do the same on this side. And I can either do my pressing tool, or I can get up and actually go to the iron. But there's enough room here, I think I can handle this with the little pressing tool. So I've got that side pressed. I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to press this side in. Okay. What I'm trying to do is make my raw edges disappear. Okay. And actually, I think I need to do that again with the iron, because it's not doing exactly what I want it to do. So let me go to the iron right here. And just take a second to press it. These little travel irons are great. I go to a lot of sew-ins and a lot of retreats with my girlfriends, and it just helps to not have to get up and go to the big table all the time when you just have a little something like this that you need to press. This one's nice and hot, and it even has steam if I needed steam. Okay, so you can see what we did was encased our zipper. Okay, we opened it out. We're going to top stitch in a little bit, and then we've pressed this over so that we now have the raw edges hidden. Now it's very important to orientate this next step. I like on my notebooks for me to pull the zipper down to get my pen out. You might be left-handed and want to go up. Whichever way is right for you is fine. But I want it to go down. So what I have to do next is take my lining and take my little quilt cover and figure out, don't want to do the iron where it burns, figure out where my placement is for this pocket. It's going to be behind my button, that's our first clue, but I really need to try out my book because I need to have at least 3 or 4 inches on the inside flap, okay? And I'm going to wrap it around just like I'm wrapping a present, and I'm going to bring this out. So wherever that ends, that's going to be about right. So I want to find my water-soluble pen, and I want to make just a little rough mark right there, okay? That lets me know that's the end of my notebook. Now that was on the notebook cover itself, so we can get our ruler and we can measure. And that's about 4 to 4.5 inches. So let's do 4 inches. And I am going to put a line on, that's a right and a wrong side to that. I like that way going up best. I'm going to go in 4.5 inches and I'm going to make a little tick mark. And then I'm going to draw my line because this is where I'm going to put my pocket. Obviously I don't want it under my the back end of my binder. I want to be able to get to that zipper to utilize the pocket for its purpose of having my pins in there. So we're going to end up with this being on the lining. And that's why I said it depends on whether you want to zip down or if you want to zip up. Okay, we're going to zip down on this one. So I now have all of this pressed. I'm going to pull out my vinyl. The nice thing about sewing on this one, we don't really have to worry as much about the vinyl. A lot of times in a lot of other projects, you really need a Teflon foot to sew with or keep the paper down because vinyl, of course, will have static cling and is going to cling to your bed of your machine. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's that sewing line where I did my zipper. I am butting my vinyl right up to that line, okay? So what's happening is this facing is actually encasing my vinyl, okay? This is where the large Wonder clips come in handy because I can stretch across here and hold it. Even if this is bunched up, it doesn't matter, okay? The most important thing is I've got to make sure that that vinyl is up against the edge. Otherwise, I'm not going to catch it in the seam allowance. And if you don't catch it, then you have a hole in your pocket. Okay, so we'll clip that one. And then we're going to go all the way down to the end and make sure it's in there. Actually, that slipped out a little bit. It's not really rocket science. It's just always harder when you're trying to show somebody. Okay, reclip that. So what we are doing is we are putting the vinyl in between the two sections so that when I stitch it, it's going to hold the vinyl in. Now, because again, the vinyl does cling, I'm going to put my paper down here just to kind of hold it. And we're going to line this up, needle down, foot down, making sure that we keep everything straight because we're going to have a pretty top stitching here. Take the clip out of the way when I get there. And I'm going right along the edge of that facing, catching the vinyl all the way down. Sometimes you got to unch it just a little bit more to make it straight. for good measure and to make it pretty, I am going to do another row because I'd like to top stitch it, because I'm going to be doing that on the other side. But you can see now that that vinyl is secure, okay? So it's secure in there, and I'm not going to have to worry about things falling out of my pocket. All right, we're going to do another little bead of top stitching right along the edge, just to make it pretty. Now on this other side, this is where we're going to attach it to the lining itself. So I really just need to lay it. Now your vinyl's longer than your pocket, so don't get worried about that. But I'm going to lay my facing right along that line that I drew. I want to center my zipper, because I've got a little bit longer with these tabs, which is a good thing because I don't have to worry about it coming undone either. And I'm going to simply top stitch that. Now if you want to, you can put a pin in there just to hold it still. Okay, just to kind of keep it going. And line it up on that line. Lost my stiletto. If you don't have one of these stilettos, I highly recommend them. It's just like having that extra finger, and actually I don't have to pin as much because this is sharp and it allows me to hold things in place, and I can go right up under that needle where my fingers cannot. So I'm going right along that edge of the line that I drew earlier, catching down those raw edges, and then we're going to cut our thread, and we're going to go back and do another top stitch so that it matches this one. So basically we're just going to go in here and pretty it up. This is also reinforcing obviously the zipper to the notebook. Just run a little bead of top stitching, and then we will have our pocket done. So the next thing we need to do is, as you can see, the vinyl is going to be a lot longer, and that's okay because then we can cut it off. The next thing we need to do is figure out where our ribbon is going to go. And you can put a little ribbon in here so that you have bookmarks. Now before I do that, I need to cut about 6 inches off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll cut off there because I need to save this for my button. So we'll set that aside. Fold the ribbon in half. It's going to be longer than your notebook, but you can trim that off later. I need to get my notebook and actually find out where it's going to go. Remember, the notebook itself ended where the zipper was, and this was our flap. It's going to go around, it's going to wrap around, so I have an idea. So now I can kind of look and see where this is the end of my book, so it kind of makes sense for my my ribbon to be just right inside the spine. Okay, so I'm going to clip that, and we'll put that there. And then also on the same token, we need to, where did it go? We need to put our little back flap on here, because when we open the notebook, just as a refresher, when we open the notebook, that's what's actually holding our notebook in. Okay, so we've got to do a placement for that. And it's not rocket science, it's just, that looks good. Put a clip here, put a clip there. I'm going to base this down about 1/8 of an inch inside so that my seam allowance, and just tack it so that when I get ready to put my lining to my backing, it's going to be already secure. Okay. Just run across there, and it's not going to hurt anything to run right along that edge. Now, sometimes because it's thick, you might need to help it along a little bit over the quilt. If you have a walking foot, if you're used to sewing with a walking foot, now's a good time to go ahead and pull that out. It does make a difference in putting your your cover together. And we're going to go over here and sew this edge. Oh, and I guess we really ought to sew that zipper down. I'm not going to sew on the vinyl because I don't want to puncture holes on it, but I'm going to go ahead and just tack this end down right here just to keep it out of my way. And let's see, sometimes we have to zip that up. Okay, so now we've got this basted. So we are really moving forward, girls. Okay, so this is my lining, all right? And now we're ready to put right sides together. Remember, we rounded the corner over here. Okay. I want to tuck in my little ribbon so that I don't get it caught in my seam allowance. Right sides together. I want my quilt sandwich on top. Even if it's kind of messy, that's okay. Nobody's ever going to see that part. But I want that on top so I can follow the lines because it's a better cut than my lining. Smooth it all out. Put a few clips in there. Now we're going to be turning this because then this way we don't have to have any binding on this, and that's always a good thing when you don't have to do binding. So I'm going to start from the edge over here, and I'm actually going to leave open a large area for turning so that I can, as they say, birth this without having to put binding on it. I'm using a 1/2 inch seam allowance because I had cut this at 11, and if you measure your notebooks, they're only about like 9. So we're allowing enough room in there to be able to take care of that bulk as things are moved and folded. So we're going to start at this end, somewhere along the bottom. Okay, and this is just straight sewing, 1/4 inch, actually about a 1/2 inch seam. Pivot and turn. And we go from there. Okay, I'm where the ribbon is, so I'm going to back stitch just to reinforce it so it doesn't get pulled out. Now I'm coming along the edge where my back flap is, and I'll probably do a little back stitching there. My zipper needs to be out of the way, so let's put him about halfway. Go slow around your curve. You've got that vinyl sandwiched in between the layers, so it's not sticking to the bed of your machine. Got a button right there. Turn it just a little bit. Pivot. Again, just reinforce the edges of the zipper, and then when you get to it, the edges of your back flap. We're going to stop about here so that we can turn. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to trim this. I'm going to use my scissors to trim away. Just rough cut it because we're going to trim a little bit better. Get rid of that extra vinyl. And find my ruler. Because we want to reduce the bulk in the seams, we are going to trim this down to a 1/4 inch. It was easier to sew at the 1/2 inch. Mainly because of the vinyl and everything else. my other scissors out. I want to carefully round the corners because there's going to be a lot of bulk there, and I want it to be able to turn pretty when I turn it inside out. So I want to round the corners, and I'm also going to clip the corners just a little bit, just to help reduce the bulk in that seam when we turn it. Okay. And now, I want to clip the corners too, to reduce the bulk there. And I'm also, if I need to, I may trim that, grate that down a little bit. Now we get to turn it inside out and see what it looks like. Just grab it, pull it through, show it who is boss. Get that light out of my way. Okay, looking good, looking good. So this again is where that little stiletto comes in handy to help you pull out those corners to get a good finish. Alright. See if we can get that pocket to go like we want it to. May have to go in from the inside. Just work it out. Take your time. Push those seams out. We are almost done. We have just a little top stitching to do and to add our button loop. Okay. All right. So now I want to kind of roll this. And I'm actually going to press it. Now we're not going to press anywhere near this vinyl because obviously it would melt. So the vinyl end, we just have to really work out and shape it, you know, with our hands and push it out. We can press it a little bit from the top side, but not obviously from the vinyl side. Okay. All right, looks good, looks good. Let's bring the iron over. Whoops. Me and my safety first stuff. Yeah. All right, let's bring the iron over. And what I'm wanting to do is roll that lining. There may be some fullness, but I can force it to do what I want it to do and press it down so that I don't have that fullness, that lining showing on top. And I know this is kind of hard to see. We're going to tuck in that end, and then we're going to top stitch it closed. So I want a really good press, good straight edge there. I can turn it over, press that lining to match, and then I'll catch that with the top stitching. Okay, now that we have it all sewn and we've turned it and we've pressed it, we need to go through and top stitch because we've got to close this area here where we turned it from. Because this is so thick in this area and around the vinyl pocket, I'm not going to top stitch there. That's just, you know, not necessary. I'm going to top stitch from this back flap all the way around, catching this end. Okay, so I'm going to top stitch obviously from the top. So let's put it in. because if I go back to that other area, it is just a little bit too thick. I'm going to go ahead and secure my threads by back stitching a little bit. Okay. And again, this is where I really like this stiletto, because I can just push it in and go without having to pin anything, without having to worry about sewing my fingers. It just makes it really nice. Go slow around that edge. It's a little bit thick when we turned it. Might need to adjust it a little bit. Okay. And now I'm coming up on the area where it was loose. And it is most important that I get all of the raw edges tucked under, okay, and secured in. Now the good news is this flap is actually going to be on the inside of the notebook, so it's not visually, it needs to be aesthetic, but it does need to be functional, and we always want to do our best job when we're sewing. Come to my corner. But this is going to help the notebook have a finished look. Kind of takes away the dorky homemade look and make it something that we're really proud of. Now I can feel where that flap is, and so I am going to stop right before it. Again, if you had a walking foot, it would probably be much easier to use a walking foot, but it works. Okay, so that top stitching is done. So we're in the home stretch. What we need to do now is slip our notebook in, slip it in the back. Oh, good, it does fit. That's always a good news. That we know is our flap. Now I need to figure out where this front flap is actually going to go. So, real simple, tuck it under, make sure that fits. It does. And I'm going to put a little clip so I know where my fold is. Slip my notebook out. Okay. Make a crease. Now I'm going to sew it from the other side so I can see my top. So I'm going to pin my clips that direction. Take this out. And I'm just going to go back over the top stitching again, and that's going to secure now that flap. And because it is an area that does have a little bit of wear, I am making sure that I am back stitching just to secure the threads. Okay. Oh, let's don't break a needle today. There we go. Okay, we have a new needle, so now we can continue on. I did want to mention, sometimes it's a little bit hard to get your foot over this area because it is so thick. If that happens, start here, back up, and go forward. So you just never know. There's always little tricks of the trade to be able to get through. You get by with a little help from our friends. Okay. And again, this is where the stiletto comes in handy, because when it is thick like this, you sometimes have to push it. Walking foot, I can't stress enough, if you have a walking foot, if you don't have one, probably time to get one. You're going to make much of these. There we go. We're about done. Last stitch. Now all we have left to do is put on our little ribbon that is going to be our button closure. So for this, I need to again put the notebook in, slide it in the back. This is one reason why I like the composition notebooks too, because they're nice. They're thick. They're sturdy. They're not a flimsy notebook. All right, there's our button. And what I'm going to do is make a little loop so that it'll go here and then wrap around there. So I'm going to need to go about to this area. So that gives me a visual. Okay. And I have to always get a refresher course of how did I do this last time. Okay. What you do is you actually make your pretty side of your ribbon down, and then you fold it over. Now this is clipped here, so let's straighten that up. That was my visual there, right? Now this is kind of in my way. So this is again where the clips come in handy. I can kind of pull it back, or that one may just stay away from me. So slide all of this underneath the machine. Okay, move this out of the way. What I'm doing is I'm securing the ribbon down, and then I'm going to fold it back this direction. So I'm hiding that raw edge by doing it this way. I'm just going to tack right across there. Okay, make sure that my flap is not underneath here. We don't want to secure the flap because so far we haven't had to rip anything. All right, we're going to back it up, bring the needle up, and now I'm going to push it this direction, and I'm going to stitch right over this. You can see where this ends right here. I'm going to fold it and stitch over it, and that's going to hide those raw edges. So we are almost done. I have had so much fun making these. I've probably made, what, half a dozen already, and I plan on making a lot more. I think they make great, I like using them myself, but I think they make great gifts. So, spoiler alert, family may be getting notebook covers for Christmas. Great teacher gifts too, if you're looking for something for the end of the school year for your kids' teachers. All right, let's tuck it all in and get this one tucked in. That side going. See if we have any loose threads. I don't see any. Oh, yep, there's some loose threads, all with strings attached. Okie dokie. Get that fitted in real good. Make it fit. Work it, work it, work it. Put something in my zipper. Ta-da! Close it up. There's my little thing. And I've got, oh, I forgot to put my ribbons in. There we go. So, how was that, ladies and gentlemen? I had a blast showing you how to do this. I've had so much fun making them. There's so many different things you can do for your exterior. You can use fussy cut orphan blocks. You can do the patchwork. Anything that your heart desires. What's fun about this is you're having fun. You're adding something functional and fashionable and fabulous. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I'm Karen Overton, the Quilt Rambler, and I love telling your story one quilt at a time. Thanks for joining me.